building relationships and keeping them past the closing table is my number one focus pretty much in running my business. And what that really comes down to is like I'm a huge proponent of coaching and mentorship. That probably comes from my skiing background. Like fully believe that you need to have someone looking at your business from an outside perspective and showing you where you can improve or where you can delegate tasks to.
Welcome back to another episode of Keeping It Real Estate. I'm your co-host, Dan Brisse, and today we have Athena Brownson on with us, joining us on the show. Athena is a top Denver realtor, celebrated for her expertise in luxury properties and dedication to creating healthy, balanced spaces for her clients. She's a Colorado native and former competitive skier. I want to ask a little bit about that with my snowboarding history.
Oh, love it.
Athena has a deep connection to the state, provides her with a unique understanding of lifestyle, making her a trusted partner for clients, including Denver Nuggets players who seek more than just a beautiful home. With that said, Athena Brownson, welcome to the show.
Dan, thank you so much for having me. I couldn't be more excited. And as I was telling you, I've quickly become addicted to your podcast and learning about, everything multifamily across the United States, because there is some variation, to say the least.
Well, we love that. That's amazing. Before I dive into your real estate background, you were a skier. What form of competitive skiing were you drawn to? Because you're in Colorado, correct?
Correct. And I was going to ask with the snowboarding magazine behind you, so you'll have to tell me about that. But yeah. I was born and raised in Breckenridge, Colorado. My dad was a professional speed skier and a real estate developer. So he was one of those crazy people that went down the mountain as fast as he possibly could. I think his record was 127 miles an hour. So I started in the world of downhill racing. But when I was about 15, I decided to be rebellious and go into the world of freestyle skiing. It was a pretty emerging sport for females at the time, so there were not a ton of us. And I competed in slopestyle and halfpipe globally for about 10 years. I put in over 300 days, usually a year, chasing snow to the southern hemisphere, or when I wasn't skiing, it was probably because I was recovering from one of 9 ACL surgeries or a couple neck surgeries. But it probably is the best business school I ever could have asked for.
Why do you say that as far as business school? I'm curious.
My coaches were extremely regimented. So I had no idea at the time. I resented them for it, but they were teaching me discipline, accountability, grit, the art of showing up on time and where you're supposed to be. Because if we did not follow instructions, you were hiking the mountain that day. You weren't using the chairlift. So they really taught me all of the skills that I look back now and they really taught me a resiliency that's really allowed me to be successful in real estate. And I always say, I think you have to have a little bit of psychoses to want to be a successful realtor, because it is definitely a triple time job, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think skiing, and honestly, I meet a lot of athletes that are in the real estate sphere. So how about yourself, snowboarding?
Yeah, that's so funny. We don't have that much of a difference in background and history. So yeah, I had a professional snowboarding career from about 2005 to 2019.
That was me too.
yeah, very, very similar world. A lot of slopestyle contests. Ended up doing a lot of backcountry filming. Ended up being a part of X Games. Real snow was the event. Okay, where are you? What years were you there?
Both years that I was in X Games, I blew a knee in one in qualification and one in practice. So I don't know if I can even claim it, but I was technically in X Games. I believe it was 2009 and 2010.
Okay. not
We have
that
a
far
lot in
off.
common.
Yeah, seriously, my goodness. Yeah. So that ended up, having its phase. And then I don't know how it was for you, but I saw the writing on the wall and I could
Yeah.
see some of my hero friends that I got to know who were 5 or 8 years in front of me, and I saw their careers end, and it
Yeah.
was super brutal. It was hard to watch. So
It's
that's
really
where I
hard
started,
to watch.
yeah, started to look at what the heck can I do to have this type of freedom, this type of passion, and something to chase. Because I was relatively young when my snowboarding career ended. How old were you when your skiing wound down?
We have so much in common because I felt the same way. My doctor looked at me and said, Athena, if you blow another knee, you're going to need a replacement before you're 25.
Yeah.
So I ended up retiring, I believe, when I was 23 years old. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I finished college. I had an internship at an incredible interior design firm that I, ended up working at for about a year. But having that background in professional sports, I realized that I needed to find a profession that allowed me to be responsible for my own success, that didn't have a ceiling on it
Mm,
necessarily, that whatever you put into it, you're going to get out of it. And
mm,
and I really wanted to be an entrepreneur. And it's funny, my dad was a residential real estate developer and built out most of Breckenridge, peak 7, peak 8. I mean, he's been developing there for 40 plus years.
wow.
And despite that, I honestly grew up with this idea of real estate agents as like corny used car salesmen that were very transactional, and it just didn't feel authentic to me. So I had a great friend. I was kind of complaining to her about my lack of excitement in the realm I was working in. And she said, Athena, you love homes, you love people, you love being able to work your butt off and be, the sky's the limit. Like, why don't you talk to the owner of my company and just see what he has to say? I sat down with him the next day, quit my job the following day, and recovered from my ninth ACL surgery while I was in real estate school. And
Holy
that was
smokes.
a decade ago.
Man, 9 ACL surgeries, Athena. That is the most I've ever heard. There are some guys in our
Yeah.
industry that I've known that have had 4, 5, or 6, but I've never heard of 9. That
If it
is,
makes it better, it's 4 on one knee, 5 on the other.
oh
And
my
my knees
God.
are probably what feel the best on me. I got
Wow.
diagnosed with Lyme disease about 9 years ago. So, right after I started real estate. And to be honest, that has been the most difficult journey I've ever been on. I mean, I would take a blown knee any day compared to what I usually wake up to in the world of living with Lyme disease. So it's
Yeah.
pretty brutal.
Stay on with me after this, Athena. I have a doctor in
Yeah.
Idaho who is known as one of the best in the world for Lyme's disease.
Yes.
People, I was out there about 2 months ago with my family, and I was sitting there being treated for just getting checked, getting my blood work
Yeah.
checked, and I probably talked to maybe 10 to 15 folks that were coming in from all over the world for Lyme's disease,
Wow.
and
No way.
in Idaho, and these are people who are normal, authentic people,
Yeah.
not trying to sell me on anything. And I'm like, "What are you here for? What, we're just chatting about life."
Yeah.
And they were saying, "I've been all over the place looking for someone to help me with Lyme's disease, and this is the best I've ever found."
I
So
am so excited to get
yeah,
this info because,
yeah,
like that, a lot of the places that skiing took me, Lyme disease has also taken me,
mm,
looking at clinics in Switzerland and
mm,
Germany and
mm,
all over the United States. But it's
mm,
just such a complicated
yeah,
disease that
yeah,
you really have to find the best of the best. So that's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait to share with you. He's a
Thank
remarkable
you.
human being. Yeah, he's been in medicine his whole life, his generations from his parents. He's all about nutrition. It's
Oh, I
amazing.
love that.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Very
great.
cool.
Well, great. So you're a real estate broker. You sell single family homes as your main focal point.
Yes, and developers. So, and of course, multifamily has been something that honestly it was an evolution with my clients over the past 10 years. It was not necessarily something that I aimed for in my career was to go after really large multifamily deals, whether on the listing side or buy side. But as my clients, you know, I started by helping them with their primary residence. And then maybe we would find them their first investment property.
Wow.
And then after that, they get maybe another investment property or their second home and turn the first into a rental after 2 years. And then it started to get, okay, I want to look at quads. I want to look at sixplexes. I want to look at, a 12 unit townhome project. So I think the biggest shift that allowed me to really understand and infiltrate the multifamily and more commercial world, because it does tend to be a little bit of a who you know, and a lot of deals are done outside of the MLS, at least in Denver. I think that is pretty common theme throughout the country. But I always say that building a team that you can rely on when it comes to lending, your inspectors, like how are you going to approach every aspect of a multifamily transaction? And if you've only ever been through, buying a single family residence, you can take the basic principles of that, but understanding the amount of really thoughtful due diligence that needs to occur, I really believe in building that team. So I met with multiple commercial lenders who were very clicked into the Denver, commercial multifamily market, and ended up really just hitting it off with an incredible lender who he's a broker, Plat Point Capital, and he had been in the world of commercial lending and multifamily projects for 20 years. And this individual really took the time to help me understand what the differences were going to be, because I knew the back of my hand, and I know like the back of my hand selling 1, 2, 3. But when it started to get into these greater numbers, like a 200 unit condo project, that's a whole different beast. So building that team out has been critical. But being that my dad was a developer, I have convinced him to start developing with me here in Denver as well. So that's a new hat that I've put on. And I can't lie, it's probably one of the most enjoyable things happening in my career right now. We just got our CO on our biggest property last week. So really excited about that.
Sounds like you have an amazing dad. He seems like
he's brilliant.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about some of the things that you've learned from him? I have a couple questions after you talk. I'm just curious, with your dad building Peak 7, Peak 8, being in the business for 40 years, what would be, some of the biggest things you've learned from him?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, he was also a professional skier. So, I think he has that same kind of psychoses of wanting to take on a lot and wanting to be the best. And he grew up in Illinois, really had nothing to do with building other than his family was in the lumber business. So he grew up around the lumber industry, but he moved to Breckenridge just as a skier bum, 45 years ago. And he started out by building his first property. And what I really saw from him was the importance of, like I said, building the right team. So he had the good fortune of working with the same general contractor and like 2 or 3 architects for almost 30 years, which is pretty impossible to come by. So they had it down to a science where they all knew exactly the type of product that they wanted to be creating. And they had a very strong vision. He has a background in like ecological land planning. So he's very conscious of developing in a way that works well for the environment that it's in. So I think that's something that, he actually worked to save a huge amount of wetlands in Colorado, and mainly in Breckenridge, from being developed because of all the animal migration that was taking place. So he had a really unique way of approaching real estate, and also understanding that the cookie cutter mold of doing the same property over and over again, whether it was a quadplex, because he did do, he specialized in luxury single family, but he absolutely did multiple duplexes, quads. I think probably went up to 6 units, but I think that was probably about his max. And he really taught me that you need to put that heart and unique effort into differentiating your product from everyone else's, because as brokers, as buyers, I'm sure we all go out and see the exact same Home Depot flip of like the exact same gray tiles, and for a while it worked. But what he really instilled in me, and has been one of the most enjoyable things for me, I should say, my mother had a background in interior design as well, so she taught me everything I know about design, but really sourcing products that made your properties unique. And that doesn't mean you have to go spend a lot more money. It might just mean doing a little bit more digging to find the right materials. So building an amazing team, creating a unique property to offer, and also understanding how you're going to be doing long-term business is going to be relational. So creating long-term, lifelong relationships that are really going to get you a lot farther in any career, but especially in real estate, which tends to be transactional. The importance of really building strong relationships. And that's really come full circle in helping the clients that I helped buy their first homes 10 years ago. And now they're ready to take on 6 units. So it's a huge, he taught me an immense amount, and he's also let me fall on my face plenty of times. I think that's how we learn the best.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, I'm with you there. I love that. I can't stress enough as well in multifamily. My CPA that we started with in 2010 said the best team in real estate wins. And still to this day, do we have
Yeah,
the right team members, the right butts in the right seat? And what's interesting is when you said that, these lifelong relationships in business, I really love that as well, as far as just doing deal after deal together. The same, we have the same CPA since we started in 2010, and I don't see them ever leaving. As long as they're in
I love
business, they're going to
that.
be our CPA. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're hiring right now a COO position for our company, and it absolutely blows me away how many folks we're interviewing that were two
Hmm.
or 3 years at one location, then 2 or 3 years at another, and two
Yeah.
or 3 years at another. And I just look at these resumes and I'm like, you've been 2 or 3 years with the last 7 employees you've
Doesn't
worked
give
with.
much faith.
What, yeah, what do you think is going to happen with ours? Like, we're not looking for a 2 or 3 year commitment here. We're looking for someone who wants to go for the next 20, 30 years. Build
Exactly.
something special. Like, let's get on the train and be like, we're committed and we're going all the way. And that's so it's really challenging to assess those people. And I just
Oh,
wonder, like,
I'm
what,
horrible at
yeah,
it.
is it poor leadership from past owners, or is it that type of person where the grass is always greener on the other side? So,
I
um,
see that too in just the stats when you look at how long people are owning homes for, how much turnover there is. I mean, it used to be that you bought a property and you lived in it for 30 years. You lived for the lifetime of your mortgage. And now the average, I believe, is like 3 to 5 years. So also, I think we live in a society that culturally we all want kind of what's next. And I
mm,
think it is kind of that grass is always greener
mm,
mentality. And
mm,
I learned very quickly that I tend to be overly optimistic when I'm interviewing,
mm,
and that it's crucial for me to have a system of who is going to be interviewing every piece of the puzzle.
mm,
Because you unfortunately, like if we're going into a project property, so maybe I'm buying a quad or a 6 unit, and it needs a facelift, or maybe it needs some serious reconstruction, whatever it may be. The number of contractors that are reliable and that honestly will not steal from you, run
mm,
away with you. I mean, the horror stories that I have heard or been through are enormous. So
mm,
creating those partnerships, like my GC that I, have been working with in development and some renovations with different investors, of all sizes. He's done projects of up to 150 units and down to single family luxury residences. But he is someone that I hope I get to work with
mm,
for the next 30 years, because
mm,
he is such a valuable asset and such an honest, good human being that one partnership is really what enables me as a developer and as an agent to really say, hey, this is what buyers are looking for from what I'm seeing. So if we are doing a renovation, like, let's go in this direction. And they're going to trust my input because I'm showing buyers every day.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to create a sellable product. So I know that I can bring him in and he's going to not only be reasonably priced, but if he says there's a deadline, that is when something will be done. There's no pushing over, which you know how hard that is.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I love that. That's great information for folks listening and about the team. You talked a little bit about client relationships. I was just curious, how are you building those client relationships? And it sounds like you do repeat business. First, you help them buy a home, then they want to buy an investment property. What do you think your secret is? I mean, you're very personable. You're very natural. So is there a connection or what is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say 98% of my business is fear. So it's either referrals from past clients or friends. So building relationships and keeping them past the closing table is my number one focus pretty much in running my business. And what that really comes down to is, like, I'm a huge proponent of coaching and mentorship. That probably comes from my skiing background. Like, I fully believe that you need to have someone looking at your business from an outside perspective and showing you where you can improve or where you can delegate tasks to. So one of my coaches helped me create what's called a greatness tracker, which is basically what activities I'm going to be doing every week to ensure that I am focused on building relationships with my clients and not letting those activities get pushed aside. Because in the world of real estate, as we all know, there's 100 shiny objects or squirrels, so to speak, and it's really hard not to get distracted and then at the end of the day realize that you didn't do any of your check-in calls or you didn't write any notes to your past clients about, happy home anniversary or happy birthday, happy anniversary. So these are all things we track really carefully, and also making sure that I'm meeting with people face to face as, at like once a quarter if possible. I really believe that you have to be, I hate using the term touching because it's so odd, but you really do have to have like 12 annual touch points a year to make sure that you are staying in close contact with your clients and that you understand what's going on in their lives. And that enables you the opportunity to talk to them about what's going on in the real estate market and maybe how we can leverage the equity that they've built up on their primary residence or on their investment property, and how we can really use real estate as a means of building wealth. Because if you look at the world of real estate, it is pretty much the number one way to build a long-term financial wellness if it's approached appropriately.
Yeah, that's good stuff. A couple things that stood out to me when you were talking there was, first of all, your greatness tracker. I love that. How long have you been working on that or using that for?
Oh my goodness. Probably 7.5 or 8 years. And it used to only be my real estate endeavors. So it would be, I'd have a goal of how many people I wanted to meet with face to face each week, how many phone calls I was going to make to each type of, each day had a different theme in terms of past clients, current clients, whales, just fear calls. Every day had a different theme. So how many calls am I making? Am I doing 4 handwritten notes a day? Am I sending out, a newsletter 2 times a month? How many open houses am I doing? But now, since I have encountered health issues and real estate does tend to be all encompassing, it's hard to find that imaginary illusion of balance, I like to say. Now I throw in at the bottom, on my greatness tracker, okay, how many times have I worked out that week? What am I putting in my body for fuel?
Great.
Like what items, like really being clear about what my must do items are and making sure that they're on the greatness tracker, and then building my calendar based off that and really trying to live or die by my calendar. Because like we said, it's so easy to get caught up doing a million things. But I think one of the most valuable things that I try and do at least a couple times a year is a time audit, and really just writing down hour by hour for like 3 days what I'm doing with my time, and then designating it like yellow, green, or red. And that, green is obviously green time. It's where I'm making the highest dollar per hour. Yellow's kind of that, okay, this isn't horrible, but it's probably something that could eventually be delegated. And red is, Athena, you should not be spending your time on this. It's not something you're good at, or you're wasting your time, or you can delegate it. And coming from a professional athletic background as a single, I didn't have teams. Like, yes, there are teams, but it's a one-man sport. So learning the art of delegation has been something that's been a huge challenge for me, because I like to take everything on myself. But especially with health issues, understanding that my time is so valuable and that I need to understand where my green time is and what else can be delegated, because otherwise I will not be taking care of myself whatsoever. And I don't believe necessarily that balance is something that can be achieved, but hey, at least making sure that you're getting in those items that are going to fill you up, because you can't put your all into your clients if you're not taking care of yourself.
That's such a great point. And I just want to touch on that a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
I was a part of this remarkable leadership group for the last year. And during that course, they talked about a hierarchy of commitments. And basically, it's an order of what you're committed to.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is the suggestion was in the hierarchy of commitment is to put yourself at the top. And the reason it is if you're not healthy, if you're not happy, if you don't have energy, how do you serve anyone else? How do you take care of your kids? How do you take care of your wife? How do you take care of your business? And so
Yeah.
I'm glad you're saying that. And I think that that's a great place to be, where you put your health first. And so my mornings, I like to get up and hit the gym almost every morning. And then
Awesome.
I'll eat something that's real healthy to get my day started. And I've found if I commit to just those two things, I generally have a great day. Where if I don't get the gym workout in, or I eat something that isn't very good, it's very easy for me to just feel off. I guess that's
Yeah.
the best way I'll put it. So it creates momentum. So I love hearing that you're doing that. And I think it's such an important thing to focus on nowadays, especially with how unhealthy food can be. And I think more and more folks are waking up to what is in the food
I
in
hope
America.
so.
Yeah.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
But I totally agree. I mean, it is, I think for me, building routines that, I'm very ADHD, as many many realtors tend to be, and like going 100 places at once. So if I can create my morning and evening routine that I will do reliably, and know that those two things are going to start my day off on the right foot and cap my day on the right foot and help me have direction for the next day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't have to take a huge amount of time like that. I don't know if you've read Atomic Habits, but one of the main takeaways that I just love is, at the start of every year, it's kind of perfect for this time of year. We create these huge lofty goals of New Year's resolutions of what we're going to do, and then by February you completely forgot what they were. But the point in Atomic Habits is to create habits and challenge yourself just to be 1% better every day. And if we challenge ourselves to be 1% better every day, the amount of progress at the end of the year towards our goals and to what we have achieved is going to be exponentially greater than if we're just setting these huge goals, but not backing them up with action steps that are attainable for us to create habits and routines every day. So I really try, and when I'm feeling overwhelmed of, especially with all of the things that I want to accomplish, all of the goals that I have in, growing my multifamily business, in developing more properties. And it's really easy to just get overwhelmed, and you kind of get that analysis paralysis. So if I can break it down into what are achievable steps that I'm doing every day that are becoming habits, that are going to take me to the long-term goal that I'm looking to achieve. And I think if, for me, I have my team every quarter. We come back to, we call it the 7 pillars of life. And that means that it's like self, family, friends, work, money, spirituality, and relationship. And you go through and write the top 2 struggles you're having in each area. And then on the flip side, write 2 goals that you have associated with those challenges that you're experiencing. And that kind of gives you a framework of, these don't have to be huge challenges, but it gives you a framework of, okay, where are a couple areas that I'm not doing great in this, over the last couple of months, and how can I make small changes to make sure that I'm addressing that? And I love, it's another thing that one of my coaches taught me about 7-8 years ago. And it's something that I've implemented religiously with my team every quarter. And it's really helped us to track, what's working, what's not working, where we are improving, what continually is not improving. And it helps give us that framework for how are we going to get where we want to go if we're not making habits that support that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Wow. A couple of points I just want to bring back to the listeners because there's been a lot of great content here.
Good.
One thing that I was listening to recently was, and you talked about it, atomic habits, just the 1% increase every day. And if you have the identity of you're progressing, like your identity is not necessarily for perfection, it's just to progress.
Yeah.
And every day you just get a little bit better at what you're interested in. And I really love that too. And I think about, I'm sure you can relate to this too, Athena, back to your skiing and snowboarding days. You didn't have these huge, in one day, you just overnight had a huge change. It was just a really little bit, day after day, month after month, year after year.
Exactly.
And so that's how business feels as well. You might have a moment where you close a big deal, but it didn't happen overnight either. It's just a little bit every day, staying focused, having fun in your strength zones. And, another thing you talked about too, there's a book I just read recently, How to Buy Back Your Time.
Ooh, I need to read that.
Have you read it?
I need to.
Okay. Well, what you described there about, writing down what you're doing every day and then labeling it green, yellow, red based off of, what the value is and what you're great at, what you're passionate about. And then the yellow stuff, maybe stuff you have to do, but you're not super good at it. It's not really that fun. And then the stuff you need to delegate or eliminate.
Yeah.
And so it's great. The coaching you're getting, clearly these folks have some clarity on how to achieve some of this in an efficient manner. So
I feel very grateful.
Yeah. And it sounds like you have a team that you guys work with regularly. The question I have as I think about as we go forward in the real estate game is cycles.
Yeah.
Like you said, in 2022, it peaked, and same with multifamily. You look back, anything we sold in 21, we made a heyday, double, triple people's money, and you look like heroes. And then the stuff you bought in 22, and then the market shifts, and you're in some deals that are challenging, and you're going through some challenges. A lot of people, there isn't one syndication group that I know that doesn't have a struggling or a challenging deal right now. What are your thoughts? Yeah. What are your thoughts on the cycle with where are we right now? Do you think we're getting close to the bottom? Are we in the smile where it starts to come back up? Do you think we're heading further down? What would be your take for single family and then multifamily?
So I'd like to start by saying that I'm huge on listening to podcasts, taking classes from the world's best economists and, like Barry Habib, listening to everything he has always predicted has been spot on. I think we can all say that what we've experienced in the last 2 years has not followed suit to any real estate cycle or any predictions that have been made. So I like to start with that. I tend to be a very optimistic person. And in the last 2 years I always say it kind of feels like I've been a hamster on a wheel, just running as fast as I can to get the same amount of output, but probably working 4 times harder to get that because every deal is so much more challenging. What I'm personally seeing both in multifamily and in single family in Denver metro, so Denver and the seven surrounding counties, it doesn't necessarily reflect what we're seeing in interest rates, but I do believe the number of buyers and loan applications has been increasing. The number of buyers that I have so far this year is greater than all of last year. So my business is usually 60% listings, 40% buyers. Last year I was 90% listings, 10% buyers. So it was, I mean, the number of buyers that were kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting for interest rates to go down was huge. But what I think people are starting to realize, that I personally think is going to slowly bring up that smiley face curve you were saying, is the fact that, do I foresee huge changes in interest rates from the Fed this year? No, I personally don't. I think we might have a couple small decreases. I hope we do. But I look at what the predictions were for 2024, and it couldn't have been further from what ended up happening. So with my optimism, want to make sure that I'm being realistic and really assessing what we think the Fed is going to do. And I think we can all say that, we can expect a couple small rate drops, but we also have a new administration that could change things in an unpredictable way. So that's a factor that we also have to think about. But just based on my personal business, I work with Compass. So we're the largest national brokerage in the country we do commercial and residential, but for residential. And it seems that the number of buyers across the board is starting to increase. I do believe that has to do with the fact that the stock market has been, rallying pretty well off and on over the last couple of months. And so people's ability to access cash has been a little bit better than it has the last couple of years. And that's what could make a down payment. And what I'm coaching my clients on is the fact that there are ways for us to combat interest rates. We do not necessarily have to come at face value if it's not a competitive situation. I mean, I don't think I wrote or received a contract in the last year in either realm that did not have a seller concession built in, where the seller was going to buy down the buyer's interest rate, either a 2-1 buy down, so 2% the first year, 1% the second year, or a 1-1 buy down, 1% the first year, 1% the second year, with the hope of refinancing at the end of that period. And a lot of lenders will do a free refi for you at that time. So that's something you can negotiate in. But if we're looking at, with interest rates where they are right now, and trying to get the cap rate to work with what the average rental rates are, it can be really, really challenging. But if we're building in, a $25,000 concession from the seller to directly buy down the buyer's interest rate temporarily, or, it could be a permanent buy down depending on the type of loan you're doing. Some do not allow for temporary. So it's obviously something discussed with your lender, what your options are. But having the ability to lower your interest rate even by 1% annually for the first 2 years, or 2%, 2 and then 1, is going to drastically change your pro forma, or just your ability to purchase and afford a mortgage. If it's, a first-time home buyer, second-time home buyer, whatever it may be, there are tricks that we have. There are ways of making homeownership attainable, because the second that the market picks up because interest rates go down, we will start to go back to 2022, when properties were going, in a day with 15 offers and 50 to 100. I saw one property go 500,000 over ask down the street from me. And was it worth that? No, it wasn't. And I would never instruct one of my buyers to do that unless it was 100% what they wanted to do. But we're, with the decrease in interest rate comes the increase in competition. So I personally think we're in this sweet spot for the next 6 to 8 months, I hope, where buyers are starting to get off the sidelines, realize that now is the time that we still have some leverage to get more out of sellers and to help sell, because our inventory is up higher than it's been in a long time. So assist that, we're also helping sellers that need to get out of whatever situation that they're in. It might just look a little bit different than it has it. I mean, in a very long time in Denver, but I do believe that people are starting to realize that if they don't jump, it's going to be too late in a year from now when we do start to see bigger declines in interest rates.
How can our listeners reach out to you?
The best way to probably get all of my information is my website, which is www.athenabrownson and that's ATHENABROWNSONREALTOR.com. And that's got my phone number, my email, my social media. I post really great videos almost every day with like little tidbits of insight on real estate and just things that you're never taught but expected to know. So hopefully can be a valuable resource. And Dan, it's been such a pleasure. Anytime you want to chat, let's do it. We've got a lot in common, my friend.
Thanks, Athena, for joining us and sharing those great insights. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Keeping It Real Estate. Stay savvy, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening.